You know how some injectable medications can last seemingly forever on a shelf? There's some pretty cool science behind that.
Mm-hmm.
And today we're diving deep into one of the key techniques, lyophilized injectables.
Exactly. We're looking at a specific report today, the Global Lyophilized Injectable Drugs Market Report 2025. Think of it as, well, our guide to this important corner of the pharma world.
Yeah, our mission here is really to pull out the most crucial bits for you. The market size now, where it's heading, what's pushing it, what's holding it back, and the regional picture.
Right. We want to give you the clear need-to-know stuff, and honestly, some of the growth numbers and, how it varies region by region. Quite surprising.
Definitely. So let's start right at the beginning. What exactly are we talking about with lyophilized injectables?
Okay, let's unpack that. Lyophilization. It's essentially a fancy term for freeze drying.
Freeze drying, like for food.
Sort of, yeah, but highly specialized for medicines. You take a liquid drug, freeze it solid, and then use a vacuum to suck out all the water as ice vapor.
Ah, okay, so you end up with a dry powder.
Precisely, a stable, dry powder.
And why go through all that trouble? What's the main advantage?
The big one is shelf life and stability.
Mhm.
It's a dramatic improvement. This is super important for sensitive drugs like biologics, complex proteins, antibodies.
Things that would break down quickly in liquid form.
Exactly. They just wouldn't last otherwise. This process keeps them effective for much, much longer.
And for you listening, wanting to get up to speed quickly, this whole process is actually vital for making sure important medicines can, well, get to more people globally.
Right, because they don't spoil nearly as easily during shipping and storage.
Makes sense. Okay, let's get into the numbers then. This report pegs the global market in 2025 at, what was it?
USD 400 and 380 million. So $4.38 billion. Pretty substantial.
And the future growth. That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, the forecast is for it to reach USD 670.52 million by 2033.
So over $6.5 billion.
Mm-hmm.
And that translates to a compound annual growth rate, a CAGR, of 5.20% between 2025 and 2033.
Which indicates, solid, steady growth over the next decade or so.
So connecting that back,
Uh-huh.
it really shows how important these stable injectables are becoming for the future of pharma. Gives you a real sense of the direction.
Absolutely.
So what's actually driving this growth? What are the main engines here?
Well, there are several key factors. First off, the rising prevalence of chronic diseases worldwide.
Like cancer, diabetes.
Exactly. Cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disorders. Many treatments for these conditions are injectable, and a lot of them benefit from being lyophilized for, well, stability.
Okay, so more patients needing these kinds of drugs is a big factor. What else?
Another huge driver is the increasing adoption of biologics. We touched on this, things like monoclonal antibodies, advanced vaccines.
Right.
They often need to be freeze-dried. The report specifically mentions mRNA, viral vector, and protein-based vaccines as examples driving demand.
Yeah, the need for stable vaccines has certainly been front and center recently. Are there broader advantages to lyophilization itself pushing this?
Definitely. That enhanced stability and longer shelf life compared to liquids, that means less waste.
Which is a big deal.
Huge. And it also cuts down on logistical costs, especially for drugs that need careful temperature control. Think about getting medicines to places without, perfect cold chain infrastructure. This helps.
That global distribution angle feels really key for access.
It is. Plus, the technology itself isn't standing still.
So advancements in the freeze-drying process.
Yes, ongoing improvements are making the whole process more efficient, higher quality, more scalable.
And I imagine the regulatory side plays a part too.
Oh, for sure. As regulators approve more of these novel biologic drugs, it naturally expands the market for the lyophilized versions needed to deliver them effectively.
Okay. One other driver mentioned was outsourcing. How does that fit in?
Right, the rise of CDMOs, contract development, and manufacturing organizations. More pharma companies are outsourcing the complex manufacturing, including lyophilization, to these specialized partners.
Why do that?
Well, it can be more cost-effective, and these CDMOs have deep expertise specifically in freeze drying. It lets the pharma companies focus on R&D.
Got it. So lots of tailwinds pushing this market up, but are there any headwinds, any restraints mentioned?
The report does point out a couple. One is simply competition from, liquids or ready-to-use injectable formats. Sometimes convenience wins out.
Okay, ease of use is always a factor. Anything else?
The reconstitution step. Because it's a powder, you have to add a specific liquid diluent and mix it correctly before injecting.
Ah, so an extra step that needs care.
Exactly. That complexity might put off some users or patients compared to just drawing up a liquid.
I see. So looking forward then, what about key trends shaping this market in the coming years?
Well, continuing innovation in the freeze-drying tech itself, making it faster, cheaper, better. That seems key.
And what about the infrastructure needed?
Yeah, even though lyophilization helps with stability, you still need good infrastructure for handling temperature-sensitive drugs generally. As the market grows, ensuring proper storage and transport becomes even more critical.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and look at the geography.
Yeah.
The report breaks it down by region for 2025. North America.
North America leads the pack, held the biggest share in 2025, over 40%. That's about USD 620 million.
Wow, okay. And its growth rate.
Projected CAGR is around 4.0% through 2033. Solid, but maybe not the fastest.
And within North America, I assume the U.S. is the giant?
Oh, definitely. The U.S. market was nearly $1.3 billion in 2025, growing at about 3.8%. Canada is smaller, just under 200 million, but growing a bit faster at 4.8%. Mexico around 150 million, growing at 4.5%.
Okay, let's hop over to Europe.
Europe's got a big slice too, over 30% market share in 2025. Now the report has a number here, over $13 billion, which seems, well, it seems like a typo based on the percentage.
Right, that doesn't quite add up.
No. Something closer to 1.3 billion would align better with the share. Anyway, the projected growth for Europe is similar to North America, around 4.0% CAGR.
And the key countries there?
The UK and Germany are highlighted. The UK around 213 million, growing at 4.8%, and Germany a bit larger at 251 million, growing at 4.2%.
Got it. Now, the region everyone seems to be watching for growth, Asia Pacific?
Yes, APAC. It held about 23% share in 2025, so just over $1 billion, 151 million to be exact. But the growth rate, that's the story.
What is?
Fastest of all regions. Projected CAGR of 7.9%.
Wow, nearly 8%. Why so fast?
Likely a combination of factors, improving healthcare access, booming pharma manufacturing, rising incomes. It's a dynamic region.
And within APAC, who's leading?
China's a huge part of it, market size around 441 million, growing at 7.4%. But India's growth is even faster.
Really?
Yeah, smaller market size, about 105 million in 2025, but projected CAGR is a whopping 9.8%.
Nearly 10% annual growth in India. That's remarkable. Okay, what about South America?
South America has a smaller share, over 5%, around 166 million in 2025. Growth is solid, though, projected at 5.5% CAGR. Brazil's the key player there, growing at 6.1%.
And the Middle East and Africa?
Smaller shares again. Both the Middle East and Africa are around 1 to 2% share each. Both reported at about 96 million market size in 2025, and both growing at around 4.9% CAGR.
Any standouts within those regions?
In the Middle East, Saudi Arabia shows strong growth at 6.0%. And in Africa, South Africa is highlighted, growing at 5.8%.
It's really interesting seeing that regional variation. It definitely paints a picture of where the momentum is.
Absolutely. And for you listening, those faster growth rates in regions like APAC might signal, opportunities for investment or partnerships down the line.
Good point. The report also mentioned a fastest growing segment.
Right. It identifies the business-to-business B2B category as growing the fastest.
What does that imply?
It suggests increasing demand from other businesses like hospitals, clinics, maybe research labs, rather than just direct-to-patient sales driving the absolute fastest growth. They're incorporating these drugs more into their services.
Interesting. So who are the big companies playing in this field?
The report names several established players. Let's see. B. Braun, Baxter, BD, Schott AG, Arista Pharma, Vetter Pharma, Jubilant Hollister Steer. Quite a few major names.
Is it a crowded market? Is competition heating up?
It seems so. The report mentions increasing competition, partly from those CDMOs we talked about, the contract manufacturers,
Right.
and also from newer emerging pharma companies, especially, perhaps unsurprisingly, in that fast-growing Asia-Pacific region.
Makes sense. Okay, finally, the report touched on market segmentation. Can we quickly cover that?
Sure. So there's a section called Type Outlook, listing things like soy, almond, coconut.
Wait, like plant-based milks?
Exactly. It looks like a standard template the report publisher uses. For this report on injectable drugs, that specific breakdown isn't really relevant, just something to be aware of.
Okay, good clarification. That could have been confusing. What about end-use outlook?
That one's straightforward. It confirms the main users are pharmaceutical and biopharma companies using these injectables across many different therapy areas.
No surprise there. And distribution channel outlook.
It just highlights the importance of both channels. B2B, getting drugs to hospitals and clinics, and B2C, business to consumer, which means pharmacies getting them to patients. Both are vital.
All right, so let's try and wrap this up. If you had to boil it down, what's the single biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
I'd say the main point is that this market for lyophilized injectable drugs is already big, and it's set for some pretty serious growth over the next decade.
Driven mostly by biologics and chronic disease treatments.
Exactly, and keep an eye on Asia Pacific. That's where the growth is really accelerating.
So, thinking beyond the numbers,
Yeah.
what does all this growth mean? What should we be mulling over?
Well, it raises some big questions, doesn't it? Like, how does this impact global healthcare access? Can we get these improved, stable drugs to everyone who needs them?
Yeah, and supply chains.
Right. Can the manufacturing and distribution networks actually keep up? Do we need more resilience there? And maybe most intriguingly, what new innovations in the freeze-drying tech itself are coming down the pike to meet this rising demand?
Lots to think about there. It's clearly a space that's evolving and really, really important. Now, if you, our listeners, found this useful and maybe want us to explore, say, specific regions in more detail, or the role of CDMOs or certain drug types,
Let us know. We could certainly circle back for another deep dive on those aspects.
yeah, absolutely. But for today, hopefully, we've given you a solid, clear understanding of this significant market.
We hope you feel well informed about lyophilized injectable drugs and where things seem to be headed.